Hello again. I'm Fez from the Facilitation Squad, and we're happy for the possibility of having another round of conversations about one of the main issues among community members BP power distribution and whale boats. This issue has always been a hot topic and so far a never ending debate, with several discussions, proposals, and test pilots that are currently on the table. We would like to deep dive into this issue by sharing community member thoughts and insights. So, in order to explore different points of view and possible solutions to address voting power distribution in the Decentraland DAO, here we are with Gino, who's part of the governance squad and is deeply engaged with this specific topic. So, hi Gino, how are you?
Folks, how's it going? Happy to be here.
Good, good. Happy to have you here too. Well, I think that everyone knows you, but it would be a great idea to start with a quick introduction about yourself.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. So I'm Gino. I work as a product lead for Governance Squad in the Decentraland DAO. I've been participating in the community since I started uh, being part of the team. That's a reality. Even though I knew the project, I I have read the white paper and I know all about the Decentraland because I had friends who participated in the early days the community and the project. Um, I'm super happy to be part of this, I would say, uh, organizational innovation wave regarding DAOs. To be honest, for me, it's the topic that interests me the most regarding the crypto space. I mean, wherever challenging the status quo, decentralization as a technology, I don't know, data ownership, all those topics are really interesting. But for me, the most interesting one is how can we make sure, or how can we design mechanisms for people to take decisions and take responsibility on complex issues and big treasuries and things like that in the previous required usually antiquated and bureaucratic organizations, not very susceptible of change.
Wouldn't agree anymore with you. That was all my passion here in Web3 too, so can relate what you're saying. Uh, so let's get to the point. We'll start with the first question, and it's about what do you think are the main problems of the current voting system in the Decentraland DAO?
So first of all, I have to say that it's a complex topic, and probably most of the answers I would prefer to say like it's just complex. There's no right answer, right? You have so for example, token voting mechanisms, especially with utility token, might be an issue, but it also might be good for the project. Or maybe it was good for the project at the beginning, and then it became a constriction of or restriction of representation of voting power. So for me, not having a dedicated governance token and a dedicated design for allocating voting power from the ground up, it's a challenge because changing things is harder than creating things from the ground up. That's one thing. The fact that we have a huge amount of latent voting power not being used in the DAO because just like big mana holders, mana in smart contracts, people who bought a lot of land and the land is laying there. So what we see on the Genesis City map, we see it on the DAO as well, right? There's a lot of people with ownership, with not executed ownership on Decentraland, right? Like if you have a stale, empty land, you're not adding value, even though you're an owner, right? You're a landowner. If you have a lot of voting power and you're not speaking up and voting in the community, well, you're not adding value there. But that's okay, because you just bought mana, maybe for speculation, maybe because you, I don't know, believe in the project, maybe because it was just cheap. That's okay. I mean, it's an utility token, right? It's not a governance one, so it kind of makes sense that you just want to sit on top of your mana and wait, or do any other thing, or have the whatever the liquidity to do whatever you want with that. So that's one thing. The other thing that I feel it is a challenge is that we do not have a way to secure the utilities of the project. I mean, for to vote on the DAO, you do not have to stack mana or to stack lands or to, I mean, secure your assets somehow. So the volatility is pretty high on that front. Yeah, I think those are like issues that we have right now.
Perfect. Yeah, really interesting what you mentioned about different systems at different stages of the project, right? Because as you mentioned, at first, this approach that we are using right now, it may be really useful, really good for the platform and its development, but right now the issue is like other thing, and well, that's why we're having these discussions right now.
Well, I think that so. I don't know. It's just a matter of. Oh, I lost my idea. Sorry.
No problem.
What I was about to say.
No problem.
Well,
We can
whatever.
yeah,
Come
we
back.
can move
It'll come
forward
back. Yeah,
with the
yeah,
next
yeah,
question.
yeah. Yeah.
It's related. So, um, so what measures do you think that right now are in place or in the right path towards ensuring that voting power is not overly concentrated among small group of members?
So for me, delegation is critical. Like voting power delegation creates dynamics inside the community that could make, I don't know, groups to like to stand out and to start making decisions. Individuals who maybe got voting power delegated to feel that they're responsible for that delegation and they could like do something, or they could like change the course of things. So for me, delegation is critical. Then, to be honest, we're not doing a lot of things regarding concentration, right? It's just that. I mean, even though we're having discussions regarding like how to better like decentralize the power amongst the community. There's It's just that, it's just questions, right? It's just discussions and topics. But as an outcome, I would say that delegation and the strengthening of our delegation program is the only thing that we're actually doing regarding reducing that concentration of PP.
Okay. Yep. Pretty clear. So you mentioned that right now we are having a lot of discussions and debates around this topic.
Uh-huh.
What are approach or improvements that it's on the table? Would you like to like implement or to?
Yeah. So regarding the concentration itself, I shared last week a document regarding implementing a system for incentivized quadratic delegation. That's something that I would like to see happening during this year. I think it could be a nice way of um, of distributing voting power. I mean, maybe it's a little bit complex to explain here, but basically it would be to have a VP pool where big mana holders can stack their VP and earn financial incentives by stacking their VP there. And then that VP that it's on that VP pool, wherever, gets distributed to the body of recognized delegates using a quadratic formula. So basically, you get voting power from the people who delegated voting power directly to you. And then using quadratic, you get a certain amount of the VP stacked on that VP pool based on not only the amount of of BP that you got delegated from the community, but also the amount of people that delegated voting power to you. I think that could be pretty interesting because we would be creating incentives for big mana holders to stack their mana into that. I mean, in the DAO or in a financial byproduct of the DAO, and not in any other protocol. And we would be capturing that latent voting power from the market into something that it could be useful for the community. Of course, we need to solve civil attacks. That would be like a like an important topic to address first. But I know that there are a lot of like products and projects doing pretty big advancements regarding civil attacks and identity, like decentralized identity services and things like that. So hopefully we will see some progress there, and we'll be able to implement something during this year.
Well, perfect. Yeah, what's really interesting also about what you just pointed out is that you're actually, with this specific proposal, you're actually tackling not only the BP distribution per se, but also the quote whales thing, right? So it's really interesting to tackle both things with a single policy.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. Well, I'd like to go further on that later.
Totally.
Okay, you also mentioned. Well, next question is about like the fight against bots. You mentioned like proof of humanity mechanisms, or I don't know.
Yeah, Gitcoin passport, things like that.
Mhm.
So the issue with bots, I mean, to be honest, I'm not super concerned about that. It's just a matter of perception, I would say, and community hygiene or something like that. The issue with bots, especially in the DAOs, like in the last couple of weeks, we've seen mana pumping. Like in the last 2 weeks, I think, I don't know, it went up for like 60%, 70%, something like that, and that catches the attention of a lot of people who's trying to get airdrops from projects. So basically, they create an army of bots, like with wallets with fractions of BP, maybe half, like literally half mana or 1 mana or even less, and they put bots. They put bots to vote on proposals on the DAOs related to the token that it's pumping, just to see if they catch something, right? Let's say the Decentraland DAO decides to airdrop a governance token, for example. Like in a year, we decide to go the governance token route. We issue the token and we distribute amongst the community. At that point, identifying the bots, it's important, right? It's really important. But for now, they're just like, I don't know, screwing some metrics a little bit, but that's it. They're not changing any outcomes or whatsoever. So it's something that we need to take and we need to pay attention to. I found something really funny yesterday, that it's a governance, like a DAO proposal from ENS that was about, it was like a bot detection proposal. And that was the title of the proposal, and the body of the proposal said, if you're a human, please don't vote here, right? And they basically catch a lot of like bots addresses, because a lot of bots, of course, voted on that proposal, and they use that to, let's say, deny list some wallets from their airdrop. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I can also share some of your thoughts regarding bots right now, because as you said, it's like right now it's more noise than anything. But I can recall other members of this community, or some people that are part of these discussions, um, like proposing ways to create incentives And yeah, well, there to create that incentives and to allocate and delegate BP. Yeah, there's an issue with the bots because what you mentioned, right? Because of they are like uh, mm, I don't know, like the KPIs to use for delegating or to create incentives are not clean right now.
Yeah, well, that, I mean, yes, that is true. That that doesn't necessarily mean that they are bots, right? For example, if you have a civil attack, you just, I mean, it's not like an automated. It doesn't mean that it's an automated bot attack, right? I mean, I think
Right.
they're like two separate topics. Of course, if we implement some kind of quadratic wherever, we need to figure out the civil attack like topic and solve that for sure. But what we're seeing right now, it's just like it's just like bots voting to
hmm
catch airdrops and things like that.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it makes sense what you say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, got two more questions for you, then we can wrap it
Sure.
up with some final thoughts and a closure. What's your opinion on using the DAO treasury as a resource for allocating BP or to create other incentives?
Um, I wouldn't use that treasury to create BP because it would be, I don't know, we would be creating like an inflation of BP. So first of all, I like to think of the DAO treasury as only the tokens that are not mana. Basically,
hmm
they're not part of our like native token of the project, right? And with all the mana that we have, I would prefer to use that mana maybe to incentivize people to do something for sure. So, for example, if we decide to go the quadratic delegation with the pool of incentivized BP for whales, I could potentially propose the idea of, okay, let's use like a portion of the treasury, put that portion of the treasury in a protocol that gets some APY, and use that APY to incentivize people that put mana into the pool of BP. So we would be using the treasury to incentivize people to delegate mana, but it's not the same than just like creating mana, creating VP from the air with the mana that we have there, right? Um, at the moment, I mean, I wouldn't consider the mana in our treasury as a circulating mana, so I would prefer to not do that. So yes, regarding the incentives, no regarding to using that VP to just like create sorry, that mana to just create VP from the air.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Um, well, last question. Can you think of any examples of recent decisions or votings made in the DAO where the distribution of voting power played a significant role and where there wasn't a broad consensus within the community?
Well, we saw last week a proposal regarding addressing the voting power distribution. I think it was from YAML, and the title was something like, should the DAO address the voting power distribution issue or something like that? And a wallet with 4 million VP voted no, and it just flipped the result of that proposal. So let me be clear here. I'm not against whales voting, not necessarily against whales voting. I'm against people voting without context. I'm against people voting without uh, saying why they vote the way they vote, especially if that's a wallet with 4 million VP, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I think that we need to be careful of maintaining a healthy community, and a healthy community needs and deserves discussions and conversations, right? So if you're just bombing a proposal with your wallet without saying anything, you're not just voting, you're harming the Decentraland DAO community, right? And I think that's the big issue, because a proposal, wherever, it can be resubmitted. I mean, there are ways, but it's really, really difficult to regain the trust when you're just like a where metaverse legislator, DAO user, voting on things, doing lobby to get some VP to vote on the things you believe are right, and then just away came some votes without context. I think that's an issue for sure. So I would like to see some guardrails for that. To I don't know if to not allow people to do that, because I don't think that's the way to go. But at least find mechanisms for those kind of wallets to basically be responsible for what they vote, and hopefully could explain the community why they vote the way they vote. Yeah, I think it's like basic civism, right?
Yeah, totally agree with that. It really discourages the involvement and the engagement of our community members when this happens. So yep. Okay, so with this coming to a close, would you like to share some final thoughts and
Yeah, something that I completely forgot is I put a proposal up for voting regarding giving voting power to content creators. Um, I I'm delaying the publication of the last stage of that proposal. Sorry, not the last stage, the draft stage of that proposal, because I've been having conversations with some community members, and I think we need to figure out what's the best way to do that, because I wouldn't want to end up in a situation where we need like a centralized authority to decide how to give away that BP. So I think we would have to find some automated way to do that. And at the moment, it is not super clear what would be the best path. But yeah, that's something that we have to figure out. I think it's from a philosophical standpoint, I think it's the right way to go, and it's the right thing to do, because the content creators community in Decentraland is probably the most important one. It's the one that it's laying the grounds for the people to join the metaverse and find compelling content, great stories, amazing visuals, and a friendly community. And basically they're building all those experiences up from the ground. So I think we need definitely to recognize that community in a stake, giving them a stake on the decision-making process. But I'm not 100% sure what's the best way to do that. But we're gonna find a way.
perfect? Nice reflection there. Well, I think that's all on my end. So this conversation, this interview is going to be released with the community pulse, I think by end of this week. And well, I wanted to personally thank you for sharing your thoughts, for being transparent. And yeah, you're a really important part of this discussion. So thanks.
So much. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Gino. Bye
No,
bye.
take care.